I've said it a million times by now. I love Spanish. But have I ever told you the story of when I fell in love with Spanish and the Spanish? No, I don't think I have. Well, here's the gist. It was January 2001. I was a senior in college, or uni as some of you say, and had just arrived in the Netherlands to spend my last semester studying abroad, like Erasmus in Europe. So I get to the dorm, which was basically like a hostel, and saw there were two big contingents. The Americans made up probably 35 to 45% of the people, and the Spanish were about the same, 35 to 45%. So it was the Americans, the Spanish, and everybody else. We Americans didn't really speak much Spanish, and generally the Spanish didn't speak any English. They did, that's not true. But bottom line, after the first week, Americans mainly hung out with Americans, including me, and the Spanish hung out with the Spanish. And I'm not gonna lie, it looked pretty good on the other side of the hallway. The Americans typically broke up into smaller groups, couples, roommates, that kind of thing. But the Spanish, oh, the Spanish, they would go into their rooms, two people in a room usually, and cook something up for dinner. But then instead of just eating it, all the Spanish would usually get in one room together. They pushed the beds and other furniture to the sides and joined up several tables. And like a big potluck, they combined all their food and had a good old time. And I was jealous. Fast forward to some random day soon after we got there. I'm walking home from the train station with Anna, a Spanish girl, and I was trying to say something, or maybe she was trying to tell me something, but it wasn't working. Anna didn't have enough English, and I didn't have enough Spanish. And I don't know if she remembers this or not, but I said it out loud. I'm gonna learn Spanish. She was like, okay. I'm sure we were all saying that. It was still the beginning. But then I said, no, I'm gonna learn Spanish. The details don't matter, but somehow I convinced myself that it was totally cool to never go to class again, as long as when my friends went to school in the morning, I was at my table drinking coffee and studying Spanish, and only if I stayed at that table until they came home from school in the afternoon. And that's what I did for 4 months, the most intense 4 months of my life still. What kept me going was many things. First and foremost, my friends. They would come home and we would play. I somehow managed to trade my American roommate for an awesome Spanish one, and amazingly even convinced this cute Spanish girl to be my girlfriend. So I lived with a Spanish guy, I dated a Spanish girl, I ate and went out with the Spanish contingent. First and foremost, that's what kept me going. I loved the Spanish. And jamon. They had lots of jamon. But there was another thing too. I didn't just love the Spanish, I loved Spanish. And not just the idea of loving Spanish, there were specific things I loved about it. I loved the words, and we just talked about a few I love in recent videos. Direction in Spanish is dirección, la dirección. And not only do those words obviously have the same origin, but they're used the same way too. When we say direction in English, they say dirección in Spanish. But the cool part, to me at least, they also use the word dirección for address, like the address of a building. So while those words have the same origin for sure, somewhere along the line in English, we started to use the word address for the location of a building, and they started to use the word direction, which is dirección in Spanish. Same origin, just history, for some reason, however this stuff works, went the way it did. Another example we recently saw, terminar. That's the way they say terminate in Spanish. Makes sense. But that's also the most common way they say to end or to finish. I finished my homework could be said, terminé mi tarea. Notice they use terminar when we would say finish, even though we have the word terminate to use if we want. Cool, right? Somewhere along the line in Spanish, they started using the word terminate or terminar when they finish stuff. We obviously use finish, which doesn't really exist in Spanish that I know of. Well, I remember one of the things I liked the most back when I was in Holland discovering all this stuff for the first time was the fact that in Spanish, they can do something we can't do in English. They can use any adjective in the world as a noun, or even a short little phrase. Hola, soy Jordan, and this is a Spanish Quickie. Fast, easy Spanish lessons from somebody who speaks your language. Okay, what I'm about to show you is really cool, but you won't be able to understand what I'm talking about unless you know basically how nouns and adjectives work in Spanish. Like it's el libro or los libros, but la casa or las casas. If any of that isn't crystal clear, you need to go back and watch the sexualization of nouns, plural forms of nouns, definite and indefinite articles, and adjectives. Links to all those videos are listed below below or in the description. Now, I'm going to teach you 2 tricks in this video. Both involve turning pretty much any adjective into a noun. Trick number 1. If what you're talking about is already known, you can just add an article like el or la before any adjective to give it the meaning of the whatever one. So for example, let's say you're talking with a friend about which of 2 books is better, the red book or the blue book. In English, if you like the red book better, you could say the red book, or you could just say the red one. Well, in Spanish, the red book would be el libro rojo, but the red one would just be el rojo. Hold on, another situation. Now you're talking with a friend about which house you like better. You could say the red house, la casa roja, or you could say the red one, which in Spanish, with this new trick, would be la roja. Let's take a look at both those examples together now. When talking about a book, which is masculine, el libro, the red one is el rojo. When talking about a house, which is feminine, la casa, the red one is la roja. See what's going on there? In both examples, words that are normally used as adjectives, rojo, roja, are now being used as nouns, el rojo, la roja, and both mean the same thing, the red one. In the first example, it's el, not la, because we're talking about books which are masculine, el libro, los libros, and we chose rojo, not roja, for the same reason, because the book is red, and again, book is masculine, el libro. In the second example, it's la, not el, because now we're talking about houses which are feminine, la casa, las casas, and we chose roja for the same reason, to match the feminine house, which is what we're talking about. Remember what I said at the beginning, if what you're talking about is known, you can add an article, like el or la, before any adjective to give it the meaning of the whatever one. The red one when talking about books is el rojo. The red one when talking about houses is la roja. If you are talking about tables, table is la mesa. It's feminine. In this case, the red one would be la roja. The blue one would be la azul. The new one would be la nueva. The cheap one would be la barata. All with la and all with feminine endings when applicable, because la mesa is always feminine. If you were talking about a gift, gift is el regalo. It's masculine. The red one now would be el rojo. The blue one would be el azul. The new one would be el nuevo. The cheap one would be el barato. All with el and all with masculine endings because el regalo is always masculine. It works exactly the same on the plural side too. So if you're talking about tables, las mesas, the red ones would be las rojas. Then for gifts, los regalos, the red ones would be los rojos. The cheap ones would be los baratos. Pretty cool, no? It's just a different way of talking. In English, we say the, then the adjective, then the word one. Well, in Spanish, they would never construct a sentence like that. The red one, el rojo uno, el uno rojo. I mean, I love being able to tell you when you can mess something up and still be understood, but this is not one of those times. You say el rojo uno or el uno rojo when you want to say the red one, you will not be understood even a little bit. The red one is el rojo or la roja, depending on what you're talking about. Got this? Okay, now for the second trick. Similar, but totally different. In English, we can use the word thing at least 2 different ways. We can say the thing on the table, and in that case, the word thing is referring to something specific, something physical being on the table. But if you were talking to somebody about learning Spanish, you could say, and you'd be right, the important thing is to practice. In this case, the word thing isn't being used to refer to anything specific or physical. It's referring more to an abstract idea or concept. In Spanish, the word for thing is cosa, la cosa. The thing on the table would be la cosa en la mesa. That's when you're talking about a physical thing being on the table. But when you're talking about a thing like an abstract idea or concept, like the important thing, that's said completely differently in Spanish. The first trick I showed you, you put el or la, then an adjective to form the English phrase the whatever one. So the important one would be el importante or la importante, depending on what you were talking about. Well, in this second trick, you put lo plus an adjective to form the English phrase the whatever thing. The important thing would be lo importante. Lo plus an adjective equals the adjective, thing. The important thing is lo importante. The good thing is lo bueno. The bad thing is lo malo. The difficult thing is lo difícil. The new thing is lo nuevo. Now, if you've been watching my videos or have just been around the block a bit, lo will probably look a little familiar. Lo is also a direct object pronoun, but that's totally different. So if you don't know about that, don't worry. You don't need to understand that stuff to understand this. All that's important is you know lo can be used as a direct object pronoun, and when it is, it means it, him, or you. And now I'm also telling you, lo can also be used like this, and when it is, it means the adjective, thing. When lo is used like this, I think it's called a neutered article or something. El and la are both definite articles, masculine and feminine respectively. Now lo is neutered. It doesn't have a gender because it's just talking about some unknown abstract concept. Feel that? I do want to point out specifically for this trick, it's always lo, never el or la. That's why it's called the neutered form, I guess, because we're talking about an abstract idea or concept, not something specific, which in Spanish would have a gender. The important thing, the good thing, what does that even mean? That's why we use lo here. Let's look at both these tricks together now to get some clarity. If you were choosing between two books, a good one and a bad one, you could say the good book, el libro bueno, or you could say the good one, which would be el bueno. If you were choosing between two houses, a good one and a bad one, you could say the good house, la casa buena, or you could just say the good one, which would be la buena. El bueno, la buena, then los buenos or las buenas on the plural side. But if you were talking to somebody and wanted to say the good thing, as in the good thing is, in Spanish, you'd say lo bueno or lo bueno es. Got it? El bueno is the good one. La buena is the good one. Lo bueno is the good thing. Again, this is just a different way of talking and you have to get used to it. It's like they put adjectives after their nouns usually and we put them before. But I promise, both these tricks, and of course they're not really tricks, they're just styles of talking, are pretty easy to get used to. Say them a few times, see them a few times, hear them a few times, and I promise you'll just feel them. Lo bueno es, the good thing is. Lo malo es, the bad thing is. Which do you want? La buena. Now, I know you're probably wanting to see better, more realistic examples, and I promise they're coming. Very soon, I'll be doing at least one video, but probably more, called Life Lessons, where we'll dissect real Spanish. And I'll make sure you know every word being used and why. Right now, we're just focusing on the concepts. El bueno, la buena, lo bueno. I did just go back and watch today's intro, and I feel the need to say, I absolutely love my American and British and everywhere friends from when I studied in Holland. In fact, I probably keep in touch with more Americans than I do Spanish, but some of my best friends in the world are Spanish from that semester. The main takeaway should be this: if you're in school still and have a chance to study abroad, do it. Find a way, change your major, just get out there in the world. It's nothing like what you're told it's like. You need to see it for yourself. If you're an American specifically, I promise it's not as dangerous as you think. There are dangerous places for sure, and you should stay away from them, but Western Europe and most of Europe is totally safe. Most of Latin America and Asia as well. Just go. Go anywhere. Don't be scared. That semester in Holland changed my life forever. I actually learned something for real for the first time in my life that semester, and obviously, those 4 months at my table in my dorm brought me here to you right now. And I like that. Best decision I ever made was studying abroad because it allowed me to make the second best decision I ever made, learning Spanish. I'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Adios, amigo.